This is the Cash Perspective. And today we talking about Arkansas bred but Detroit made Chambers brothers. Larry, BJ, Willie, Otis Chambers. They came from extreme poverty, deep south, all the way to Detroit, selling 5 to 10 bricks a day in nickel bags. If you know anything about anything, you know that's a whole lot of cash. Speaking of which, go check out my Whole Lot of Cash YouTube page. Break that like button. Beat that subscribe button brains out. You hear me? Then ring that bell and let it be known that you've arrived, member. Oh, and shout out my partner 078 Hitman from Off the 9. He the one that put me on to the Chamber Brothers. Let's get into it. These guys was born in one of the poorest countries in America, Lee County, Arkansas. The name of the town was Mariana. Wasn't no plumbing, they had outhouses. Wasn't no refrigerators, they had smoke houses. Wasn't no such thing as deep freezers. You better eat that meat while you can. Now, it was 16 siblings in the Chambers family, but we talking about 4. Out of that 4, the first one is Larry. Larry was really like that. He was one of the first siblings to jump off the porch. In 1969, he was arrested and charged with PSMV. For those of you who don't know, that's possession of a stolen motor vehicle. Now, like a year or so before that, he had moved to St. Louis with his grandparents. Caught this case in Arkansas in his hometown. He had just came to visit for the weekend. Boom, he locked up for the PSMV. He like, man, I'm not finna stay here. So he tricked the guard that was on duty at the time. He flooded his toilet, come in here and fix my toilet. You know what I'm saying? Dude opened the door, he beat dude ass, get up out of there. Spent the night in the church. The next morning, he got up, stole the pastor's car, went on a 2-day robbing spree. Arkansas State Troopers tried to whoop on him. He actually pull over though. One of them walk up to the side of the car, he pop him, he skeet off. They catch him the next morning though. Of course, you know how that go, charged with an attempted murder of a police. They only gave him 9. Which is way lower than the numbers I'm used to hearing in those types of cases. But anyway, he go down, he do his time. Psych, 5 months into that 9-month bit, he like, I don't want to be here. And he escape again. This time he was caught in Phoenix, Arizona, brought back, escaped again. But he used a little bit more finesse this time. He bribed the guard to get him out. Then he got caught again trying to rob a jewelry store in Wynne, Arkansas. Then he do 6 on that case, get out, rob the post office with his little brother and his little brother friend. Now, them two, the little brother and his friend, they rookies. They get caught. Larry don't say nothing. He know he a veteran at this point. His little brothers though, they talking. They telling it all. They confess to it all. Said, goddamn it, his Larry was there with them. So, you know, now he in a trick bag. So what he end up doing, he just cop out for that burglary and take that time. They offered his brothers and his brother's friend like a suspended sentence to come to court and testify against Larry. But the lawyer, you know, made that happen to where, you know, that didn't have to happen. He ended up copping out. He didn't fight it. But they had no physical evidence tying him to that crime. You know, this was pre-great surveillance and all that shit. So the only thing that tied the two younger guys to the crime scene was their fingerprints. They even left their fingerprints on the scene. Larry had no physical evidence tying him to the scene except the words of his little brother and his little brother's friends. Now, while he down for that, Larry's older brother, Willie, he had already served 2 years in the Army. He get out the Army, he moved to Detroit, get a job with the post office. So in 77, one of their other brothers, BJ, he decides to go to Detroit to visit his older brother, his other brothers that's already in Detroit, just on some summer vacation type of stuff. He go up there, he meet a young lady named Niecy. He fall for Niecy, Niecy fall for him. But he got to go back to school in Arkansas in September. So he go back to Arkansas in September. Whole time he staying in contact with Niecy. He telling Niecy like, man, I don't want to be in this hick ass town no more. I done seen the city. I want to be in the D. She convinced him. She like, man, just hop on the bus and come on back up here. You can live with me. He like, man, ain't your OG gonna be tripping though? She like, man, my OG ain't never here. Whole time Niecy's mother was a drug addict. So she really was never there. And if she was there, Niecy probably had a way to hide him. You feel me? Boom, he hop on the Greyhound, head to Detroit. Now he get to Detroit, he get to rub shoulders with another Arkansas native, call himself Fly Guy. Fly Guy had a big brother. His big brother was that nigga, like he was getting it. But he kept it under wraps, he was real player about it. His brother name was Big T. Big T had told Fly Guy, don't let BJ in his house. The reason why he didn't want BJ in the house was because the house was a place where all the weight was held. But of course, Fly Guy let his friend in the house, right? So they seeing endless garbage bags full of weed. Fly Guy tell BJ like, yo, don't touch nothing in the bags. But I done picked up enough shit off the floor, and he pull out a big ass bag, like 2 or 3 ounces of weed. They get the rolling joints. They going to school, they selling joints at school now. They on their grind. Now, of course, time passes. Everybody graduating, everybody elevating. BJ no different. You know, where he was selling weed for Big T, but then he graduated. His girl ended up having a baby. So at that point, he dropped out of school and he was full-time hustling. He went from just selling weed to now selling weed and heroin. And he getting it, right? He ain't no kingpin, he ain't no drug lord, but he getting it at this time. His brother Willie decides to take his money that he had saved from the post office and open up a convenience store and opens up a car wash. BJ takes that opportunity to use both of these establishments to hustle out of. The store ended up getting raided. So when the store get raided, BJ moves his operation to some low-income housing he had purchased. He grinding out the houses. He got heroin, he got weed, and then he was introduced to crack cocaine. It was at this point where his operation expanded to not only include him and Fly Guy, but also his brothers Willie and Danny. So when they switched to crack cocaine, you know, the bread was coming in. This around 84. You know anything, you know, this the height of the crack epidemic. They took over Detroit's Lower East Side. Then Larry came home. You know, that's big bro. So he come through the door, he see what his little brothers and shit done created. He proud of them. He go and create the Wrecking Crew. He reached back to Arkansas and he grabbed some of his old crew, brought them back to Detroit, and this is the enforcement wing of his brother's organization. He bring them back, he get the protecting shit. And they brutal in how they protecting shit. But it ain't long before Larry like, nah, I need to get in on this, right? So he get the hustling too. Him and BJ had this friendly competition type of thing going on. You know, Larry will open up a trap spot, BJ will go open up 2 trap spots. Larry will bring his prices down to $5. Larry will bring his prices down to $3. So they had this friendly competition that was going on, but whole time that was good for the brand. That was good for the franchise, if you will. Like that kept the lifeblood flowing. BJ and Larry, by the way, were the 2 key players in this organization. They kept everything afloat. Now they expanded. They getting to it. So they purchased a 4-story building, right? This is where the comparisons between New Jack City and the Chambers brothers, you know, Nino Brown, CMB, and the Carter and all that. This is where those comparisons come from, right? Because they went, the Chambers, and they purchased a 4-story building. Now on the first floor, the lobby, right? They had a pawn shop. They also had a little cafe in there. Probably not your Starbucks type of cafe, but you know, a little spot. On the first floor of that apartment building was the $3 bags. On the second floor of that apartment building was the $5 to $8 bags. On the third floor of that apartment building was the Salt Bucks. And then you went to the 4th floor, that's when you getting your Dub Rocks, and you probably can get a little bit more weightier up there in terms of what you was looking for. They say this building was making $3 million a day at its height. Now, you know, they said Larry was uber intelligent, like damn near genius, right? You probably couldn't tell in the early parts of his life because he was steady getting caught for shit. But once he got his hands on this organization, the way he thought, the way he saw things was nothing short of ingenious. So boom, he got this building. On each level, they got different size bags. All the employees got ID badges so they can keep track of who works there. You know how your school or your office building, they do fire drills, they do active shooter drills. These guys was doing raid drills to make sure everybody knew from the worker to the top what to do in the event of a raid. You got high school students making $100 a day. They either cooking or they trapping. Inside this office building, they had a building manager. That building manager was Patricia Middleton. Remember that name. I'm gonna come back to her in a minute. Larry bugged his own cars. You like, what? Yeah. See, now when he ain't around, he can hear what his drivers and his other associates is thinking, or not what they thinking, but what they talking about. You know what I mean? And he stayed a step above people this way. Like he felt like, man, in his own words, you cannot sleep in this business. He seen plenty of lieutenants smoke their bosses. So he wanted to make sure he wasn't gonna have the fate as one of them other bosses. Man, dude was raw. He had a group of females, bad little female. They going to go holler at the rival hustlers. They going to seduce them. They started dating them, bringing back information to Larry about what was going on, where they stash spots at, how much money they really making. He got a group of older females going to sit in trials. Take notes. What's these niggas' real names? Who in there ratting? Who staying solid? He keeping track of all this information. Now, let's get back to Patricia Middleton. She was the building manager and she was the girlfriend of one of the high-ranking members. She became a DEA informant. That's when the raid started. This was around 1986. They started kicking in doors and properties associated with the Chambers brothers. Of course, they was finding shit. So then, Lil Terry Colbert, not Big Terry. Remember Big Terry, Big T, he was the original plug for BJ now. His son, though, Fly Guy's nephew, he becomes a DEA informant. This results in even more raids on the Chamber Brothers' different properties. It was in one of these raids where a list of rules were found and how the organization was to be ran. This was nicknamed the original 10 Crack Commandments. So when Big and all them came out, this is where they got that terminology from. The 10 Crack Commandments came from what Larry Chambers had wrote. I know y'all want to know what they is, don't you? Well, I got you. Check it out. So this list outlined different infractions and the fines for those infractions. Now, I understand these are young street niggas, so the punishments can go well beyond these fines. You can get your ass beaten. If you too far out there, you might lose your life. But this was the general guidelines to how the organization was to be ran. Stealing amongst the group, that's a $300 fine. Fighting amongst the group, that's a $100 fine. Neglecting one's house, that's a $100 fine. That one probably go over a lot of y'all heads, but that one is important. Not following the rules, a $100 fine. Revealing secrets about the organization to outsiders, a $500 fine. Playing loud music during pickups or drop-offs, a $50 fine. Bringing strangers to any one of them trap houses, a $500 fine. 2 people must ride together when they transport any type of drugs or money. If not, that's a $100 fine. When you transporting, ain't no extra stops. Don't be going to your brother, your mama, your sister crib, your homie crib, stopping over here to get some pussy. No extra stops. They catch you doing that, that was a $400 fine. They catch you lying for another worker, that's a $500 fine. They catch you causing confusion amongst the membership, that's a $200 fine. They catch you speeding while you doing pickups or drop-offs, that's a $100 fine. All money had to be collected from all the spots before 6 a.m. or that was a $200 fine. Ain't never supposed to be you riding with no money and no dope at the same time. They catch you doing that, that's a $300 fine. Also inside this list that was nicknamed the 10 Crack Commandments, it was more than 10 to be honest with you. But nonetheless, there were more comments that Larry had made on this paperwork. Those comments included, if you want to get rich, forget your family and forget your girlfriend. You will not have a whole lot of time to party and go to concerts. You should not ever you shouldn't be out there wearing felines and chains and gold ropes, etc. With hard work and dedication, we will be rich within 12 months. These were the rules and the policies laid out for his organization to keep them under the radar. You really pay attention to them? They all made sense. So that year the raid started. Once the raid started, it was a rough year for the Chambers family. One of the brothers, David, who wasn't necessarily tied in with the criminal aspect of it all, because you know they had 16 other siblings. One of the brothers, though, he ended up dying due to complications of AIDS that year. Larry got locked up in December of that year, and then BJ turned around and got popped in January, the following month after Larry. Then by February of '88, everybody who had any type of ties to the organization, they had got swept and they was locked up too. During that last sweep, 250 weapons, 68 cars, over $250,000 in cash, 6 bricks of cocaine. They got popped with a lot of shit. Willie decided to take a bench trial while the other brothers, they all opted for jury trials. They all ended up getting found guilty in the long run. Willie Chambers got 21 years. Otis Chambers got 27 years. BJ got 45 years. And Larry, they gave him life. Now, Willie came home in 2007. BJ followed him up, came home in 2010. Otis came home in 2011. Larry still locked up in Terre Haute in the feds. Now, before y'all go on to say, well, they sentences don't match up with their time and it do seem like Willie and Otis, they both did their bids, like they full time. BJ, I think he got his sentence reduced from 45 to 27, and he ended up doing 23. So he home. One thing that I didn't mention, it was a book written by a New York Times journalist. This book was called Land of Opportunity. And in the Land of Opportunity, he kind of juxtaposed the civil rights struggle along with what was going on in the Detroit and other areas. And the Chambers brothers was the subject of that book. The book was a pretty good book, so I've heard. I haven't read it. I've been looking for it. You will be hard pressed to find this book these days. But outside of the book being so well written, it was one sentence in that book that got it pulled and got the mother, Hazel Chambers, paid. In that book, the New York Times journalist seem to have accused or stated that Hazel Chambers worked as a prostitute. This woman has never been arrested. This woman has never been accused. This woman damn sure has never been convicted. So, ladies and gentlemen, that's libel. And while all of this was going on, right, her sons was plastered nationally all over TV or whatever, fighting their drama, she had to sue, and she came up and she won. So that was a bright spot in all of these dark times that the Chambers were going through. At this point, though, there is a club, a nightclub. You know, down south, they call them juke joints. And they call it Club Blow. It's like, damn, when I first heard it, I'm like, that's a hell of a name to choose after all that shit y'all done been through. It's actually kind of dope because Club Blow stands for BJ, Larry, Otis, and Willie. So yeah, they running a juke joint down there. It's a hell of a story. Them guys ran through a lot of money and lived a hell of a life. I'm not gonna lie to you though. Free Larry. Both of them. Straight like that. Now you wanna know.